You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Engage.
78 years have passed since the days of the original USS Enterprise. Now a new Galaxy starship has been designed.
Hailing frequencies open. Welcome to Galaxy Class, a Star Trek The Next Generation podcast on BQN. I'm holophotographer Stefan.
And I'm Ambassador Steven.
And how are you, Ambassador Steven?
I am well, holophotographer Stefan. How are you?
I am sad. As we are recording this, Star Trek The Cruise has just concluded. So I think you and I both have been experiencing a little FOMO, eh?
Absolutely. It looks like so much fun.
Are you in the Star Trek family group on Facebook?
I don't think I'm in that particular group.
There's so many of them now, but I've been seeing so many updates from them, and it just looks so fun.
I actually happen to have a lot of friends on the cruise this year. I didn't realize so many that were going, so I'm just seeing their normal social media updates, and I'm like, oh, you went. Oh, you went.
Yeah.
Oh, you're there. And then I'm thinking, well, why am I not there?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why I'm not there. That's a little spendy for me. I did the first one, and God, I don't have several grand to drop on a week at this point in my life. Maybe in the future.
Same. I went to Star Trek The Cruise 6, and it was fantastic. I'll go again at some point.
Yeah. What's something that stood out to you on that cruise?
The base level of joy I experience in life was so much higher for those 7 days. Yeah. It was just like people shouting out support, like, I love your cosplay. Oh, that's a great. Everyone being so positive and so like I just was happy. I was just smiling all the time.
Yeah, I do feel that when I go to STLV, which I'm excited for that coming up this summer. But it's always a little sad when Star Trek The Cruise comes along and I don't go. But I watch all my friends go, and I'm really happy for them to be able to experience it. And I'm glad they post pictures because it looks so great. One point that really sticks out to me every year is the cosplay people do. Just carrying stuff in their luggage and putting together these incredible costumes. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how people do it in Las Vegas. I would think it's a little more accessible maybe because some people probably road trip and have a lot of space to carry these like big elaborate costumes. But on a cruise ship, man, like on a cruise ship luggage budget, I don't know how people pull this stuff off, but I think it's awesome, and I love seeing it online.
This was the first time that I knew someone going on the cruise that was going to do a somewhat elaborate cosplay, and she shared with me what she was doing. So she was doing Emperor Giorgio with the crazy spoke crown thing, and so she brought the materials with her to Florida and assembled like the base of it in the hotel room, and then carried it on board and finished assembling it in her stateroom. And I thought, I'm so happy for you that you have that level of creativity and ambition. Lisa, nod to you. That's so cool. And I would break it. I would drop something. I would forget something integral. It would not go as planned, but she did it. It was stunning. It's incredible. And that was like a small piece, right? Folks do these huge things, like you said. It's inspiring, and it's nice to be able to go and enjoy that both in Las Vegas and on the cruise ship.
Yeah, it's a really interesting mix that you have to have of that creativity you mentioned, but also organization and being able to like pack the things that you can assemble there versus the things you must assemble at home. It's crazy. But again, happy for all our friends on Star Trek The Cruise, and I hope it went well for all of you guys. Maybe some of our listeners were on that boat. Well, today we're going to talk about an episode. I can't think of a good way to segue from boat to probe, but why don't we head into the ready room and have a chat about TNG's interface.
This is the captain. Senior officers will report to my ready room immediately.
Today's lesser discussed episode for us is the Season 7, Episode 3, Interface. So, Steven, I believe you said you had a chance to watch this episode?
I did.
Had you seen it recently?
I had not. In fact, it's been so long since I've seen it that even reading the little snippet before I pressed play, I thought, what? What's happening?
Yeah. My list of what I remember is pretty short. I did know from the title of the episode that it's the one with the probe that burns Geordi's hand. But I made a short list of the things that I remember. I'll kind of go through them, and if you want to add anything, please do. First off, I remembered, okay, Interface is that Geordi episode where he is a probe, essentially. He's linked with a probe that's on another ship. I also remembered that burn on his hand. I thought, bad design. First time I saw it. We'll talk about the details later there, but I remembered that because that was kind of gross. I remembered that, and this was a question mark in my notes. This is the one where his mom's on a ship he's investigating or something. And from that, I remembered his mom, I always thought was played by the same actress that played the captain of the Saratoga in Star Trek IV, the one with the whales.
Right.
I had never looked it up until doing research for us recording this episode today. And so that was interesting because I guess she was uncredited in that Star Trek IV role. But growing up watching that movie and the show, I remember thinking they're the same actress, but like probably not the same character. And then the last thing I recalled was this episode ends on a mystery, I thought, about his mother's fate, and that Geordi's mom becomes some sort of non-corporeal entity, ? That's all I had in my memory banks. The last time I would have watched this was my last TNG run through, so 400 years ago. But that's what I recall.
Truly, I remembered that Madge Sinclair was in as Geordi's mother, and I was like, oh, she's uncredited. Same thing. I remember her being uncredited in Star Trek IV. She was the first Black female captain that we see in Star Trek. You
knew her name?
I did, because
I didn't know her name.
And I only knew it because there's something else that she's in, which of course right now is escaping me, that I've watched, and so I'm like, oh, that's the act. Like, it stuck with me. That's her name. But I can't recall what I watched that I enjoyed her so much in that I recalled her name, but I did recall her name.
Okay. I've got a little bit of info on her when we get to kind of talking about trivia. But okay, I had no idea what her name was. I know she's been in a couple things that I've seen, but I didn't know her name. Well, with that out of the way, let's go through a quick summary of this episode, shall we? Star Trek The Next Generation, Episode 3 of Season 7, Interface. Geordi, Data, and Dr. Crusher are testing an interface which allows Geordi to use the visor-compatible circuitry in his brain along with a virtual reality suit to control a probe remotely. This essentially allows him, as the probe, to go into hazardous areas that would otherwise be too dangerous for biological crew members to enter. During testing, Geordi is informed that the ship his mother commanded, the USS Hera, has disappeared, and all aboard are presumed dead. The Enterprise is currently on a rescue mission to look for survivors aboard another ship, the USS Ramon, which is trapped in a gas giant's atmosphere. Geordi uses the probe interface and finds that there is no one left alive on the Ramon, but later reports that he encountered his mother there. Despite the fact that continued use of the probe exposes Geordi to unhealthy levels of neural stimulation, he is convinced that his mother was on that ship and wants to use the probe again to communicate with her. A concerned Dr. Crusher and Captain Picard refuse to allow him to do so. Geordi decides to do it anyway. While interfaced with the probe, he encounters the being who appears to be his mother again, but learns that she is actually a life form native to the gas giant. This being talks Geordi into taking the Ramon closer to the planet so that she and others like her trapped on the ship can go home. Back aboard the Enterprise, Geordi is reprimanded by Picard for his disobedience and begins to open up to the possibility that his mother may in fact be dead. What a happy ending, eh? This is a little rough at the end, huh?
I remember that by seasons 6 and 7, we're dealing with much heavier topics. These aren't the fun, light, fluffy episodes where we're just getting to know folks. Like we know the characters, we need to go deeper, and that tends to lend itself to darker episodes. So this is, I think, par for the course for later seasons.
Like I said earlier, one of the things I remembered was I feel like this ended on an uncertain note. And to my knowledge, we never actually get to know what the fate of Geordi's mother is.
Right.
So with that, let's talk about a little bit of trivia with Interface. Back to Madge Sinclair. Steven, you had mentioned you knew the actress. I had to look it up. So Geordi's mom, Silva LaForge. So her name is Silva. I thought it was Sylvia for a second, but just Silva. Silva LaForge was played by Madge Sinclair, who also played Sarabi in The Lion King, which came out a year after this episode. I am a huge Lion King fan.
That's why I knew her name.
Blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, what? Okay.
Yep. That's the thing. That's why I knew her name. That's exactly what, yeah. I was like, it was something like really integral in my childhood, and I don't remember what.
Yeah, she has such a distinct voice in that movie. I'm a little sad that I didn't make the connection, but yeah, I thought that was amazing and a huge surprise to me because I often cite Lion King as possibly my favorite Disney animated film of all time. But this isn't a Disney podcast, and we could talk about that some other time. But back to Madge Sinclair. She did, as we talked about earlier, play the captain of the Saratoga in Star Trek IV, the one with the whales. Though she wasn't credited in that role, which is interesting because she had lines in that role. Do you know anything about the method to choosing what gets credited in end credits in movies in the 80s? I don't.
I do not.
Yeah, seems a little unfair, but we recognize her.
Wasn't she also the queen in Coming to America?
That I don't know.
James Earl Jones was the king. Of course, Eddie Murphy was the prince who came. I'm pretty sure she was the queen in Coming to America.
Look it up. That's interesting. I have not seen Coming to America, and I know that they did a sequel in recent years. I think Amazon released it. I haven't seen that either, but yeah, maybe she was.
She was.
Okay.
She was. She was Queen Alien? I don't remember the name of the queen, but she was the queen. Yeah.
Shifting over to Geordi's father, and I didn't remember this. All right, I see you. I see you waving, listeners. Steven's very excited about something, and I think I know why. But I don't think that's what I'm talking about yet.
Okay.
What I was going to bring up was we see Geordi's father later in the episode Genesis, which is the one where everybody devolves into monsters, and it's like the scary Halloween sort of episode. I did not remember that we saw Geordi's father come back in that episode. We will get back to Ben Vereen, who played his father. I think the last point in my trivia is the thing that you're excited about. I read this and I was like, what? But we'll get there. Another bit of trivia that I ran across for this episode was that Riker was originally slated to be in the VR suit in this episode, troubled by the death of his father with scenes in an Alaska cabin.
I had no idea.
I know, isn't that kind of weird? And what's funny about this is it changed because Riker was recently featured in the episode Frame of Mind, and it also just made more sense with Geordi's implants that he would be in this interfaced with this suit.
Sure.
But yeah, in an alternate universe, Riker was the center of this episode.
I can kind of see that, but yeah, the setup with Geordi and his visor implants, I mean, it's there. It's already there.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
It's a fit, and I feel like Geordi needed a little more featuring and development than Riker did at this point. And the bit of trivia cited the fact that he was in Frame of Mind, which we discussed on a recent episode of Galaxy Class. Go listen to that if you haven't. But yeah, so scenes in a Alaska cabin with the death of Riker's father, which is it's something.
It's another sort of sad, dark topic.
Right. So another bit of trivia. Visual effects supervisor Ronald B. Moore was disappointed that we only see the probe once. We see in the reflection and engineer, that first bit where Geordi's using it. But the director, Robert Weimer, explained that it would be emotionally unrewarding to film the probe with Geordie's mom. Can you imagine? Like at the end, these emotional scenes of like, "This is you, mom." The walking white cylinder with antennas and stuff. Like, I get it. I feel like that was probably the right choice.
I think it would have made sense to even just included a moment where we're watching it be beamed to the location, or just to like see the probe. I think that could have been. I agree that filming the probe itself in those scenarios wouldn't have been as engaging as having Geordie there. But I imagine they put a lot of effort into it, and I can see why he would be disappointed to like not really see it.
Yeah, I know. I hope it's appreciated in all these Star Trek shows that they can't just buy something at Walmart and bring it into the show. It's like they got to make all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, the prop makers go really hard on some of these things that they create for the show, and it's complicated. And I get it. They want their work to be appreciated and seen.
Absolutely.
Further production point: during the production of this episode, writer Ronald D. Moore felt TNG had gone as far as it could be taken, and he said, "I think it was a point where we were in the writer's room and we were talking about bringing Geordie's mother in, and we all kind of looked at each other and we were like, this is sad. This is the best we can do. Is the best we can do Geordie's mother? It was such a who cares idea that we were just sort of, oh man, this show has got to end." End quote.
Wow.
I know, it's like, well, I mean, I care about Geordie's mom, but I can see where the idea might feel a little hollow. Like, let's bring in people's like family members, but that can be used as a tool to develop characters and learn a little bit more about their backstories. But I guess they were kind of over it at that point.
Wow.
Yeah. But let's come back to Ben Vereen, who played Geordie's father. A couple of things. First, Ben Vereen, Geordie's dad, and his mom, Madge Sinclair, both appeared with LeVar Burton in the 1977 TV miniseries Roots. Ben Vereen played LeVar Burton's character's grandson, and then Madge Sinclair played LeVar Burton's character's wife when he was an older man. I have not seen Roots in 47 years, so I don't recall them being in this, but what a crazy coincidence. I mean, maybe it's just small Hollywood, but it's pretty crazy. They've played family before.
That's interesting.
And then there's a theater connection, which I assume is what you were excited about, Steven. What I found out, and I had no idea, was that Ben Vereen had 2 stints playing the Wizard of Oz in Wicked on Broadway starting in 2005.
And I saw him in that production.
You did?
I did.
Cool.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was incredible. Ben Vereen...
20 years ago, how was it?
Right? Like, Ben Vereen is such a veteran actor, entertainer. He's like the full package. Sings, dances, acts. Like, he's just... There was a show when I was a kid that I don't remember the name of the show. They're all like animals, but it's like people in like animal suits, and he was in that show. So like I remember him as an entertainer as a child.
Oh.
And when I went to see Wicked, I missed the first cast. So I was bummed that I saw the second cast. But the second cast had Rue McClanahan as Madame Morrible.
Okay.
Blanche from the Golden Girls.
Yeah.
And Ben Vereen as the Wizard, this incredible actor who's just like done it all. And I completely forgot that he played Geordie's father in Star Trek. It was incredible. Yeah. When I saw his name pop up in the intro as the intro credits, I was like, oh, what?
Yeah.
And it said, as his father, and just what a cool actor. What a neat cameo for him in Star Trek. It was exciting. I
don't know that I don't recognize this actor from anywhere else, but I do feel like his character in this episode is obviously in a very somber mood, and he seems like a kind of serious Starfleet official. And it's kind of wild to imagine that he is also has been in children's shows and like Broadway and connected to this. Do you know that the person that originated the role in that first cast that you missed on Wicked, the person that originated the wizard role was also a Star Trek guest star? Yeah,
I did. Like, I did know that. I did know that.
I did not know that. So prior to Ben Vereen playing the wizard was Joel Grey, who was in a Voyager episode. I didn't really know that actor when I saw him on Voyager. I think I maybe recognized him from some other stuff, but I didn't know him as a like theater actor as well.
Yeah.
Do you know if you've seen him in any shows?
I don't believe so. I mean, I knew that he was the voice actor for the Wizard. I mean, the original cast recording is the music. That's how I learned the music for Wicked. So I knew that he performed it. But
Wait, have you been in Wicked?
I've not.
Okay,
I've seen it many times, more than I probably want to admit, on Broadway. But I lived in the city for a while, so it was pretty easy access. But I've not seen him. I don't believe I've seen him perform in anything.
Yeah, he was in that episode of Voyager with Janeway where he thought she was his daughter or something like that. I don't recall the details, but that's where I know him from. And that kind of wraps up our trivia section. If you have something else to add, go ahead. Otherwise, let's hop over to discussing the episode itself.
Quickly, while I was looking at Madge Sinclair, there was a note in her IMDb that she actually played parent to LeVar Burton in 4 different shows, movies, etc.
Wow.
I was looking at it quickly and I was like, yeah, she played his mother in like 4 different iterations in different things over the years. So,
okay. Yeah, I did not come across that. Interesting.
Yeah, so I found it here. Madge Sinclair and LeVar Burton shared a notable recurring on-screen partnership, most famously playing mother and son in the Star Trek TNG episode Interface, 1993, as well as in Guyana Tragedy, The Story of Jim Jones, 1980, and One in a Million, The Raw on the Floor Story, 1978. As Stefan already mentioned, Sinclair also appeared as Belle Reynolds, the wife of Burton's character Kuta Kinte, in the landmark 1977 miniseries Roots. So they've been family for decades.
I've only seen Roots out of that list, and of course, Star Trek The Next Generation. Well, why don't we go ahead and start discussing the episode and how we felt about it. I got some thoughts.
Let's do it.
So let's do it. I do have some issues with this episode. But I'm glad for the attempts to develop Geordi's character a little bit. And I do think this is a good episode. They don't all have to be happy endings, do they?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. This one's a little rough. But so my first note that I wrote down while watching this was, well, first of all, Admiral Marcus Holt was talking to Picard, and he says, "We're hosting this year's Paleo." What? And I was like, "What's that?" I didn't know what that was, and it's not really relevant to this episode, but I had to look it up. Did you know what that was, Steven?
No idea.
Okay, I had no idea. I was like, "What is this?" So I looked it up, and it's only been mentioned in this episode of Next Generation. So Paleo is apparently a thing that existed in the Middle Ages, says the internet, and it was an athletic event to pit cultures against each other, and it included things like horse racing, archery, jousting. I was not familiar with this word at all, so I had to Google it.
So they were jousting on Deep Space 3?
I guess so. I mean, this description of it that I found, like the real world description, I mean, it kind of sounds like the way that they were describing it, because I think the Admiral was talking about how, if Ferengi might try to cheat, or they're just talking about it sounded like they're bringing different cultures in to do this sporting event. So anyway, that's news to me.
In that conversation, he mentioned about something about the Breen, and my understanding of the Breen is just that they're just bad guys and we don't interact with them. So the thought that they were part of this competition or whatever it was seemed odd to me.
Yeah.
That stood out to me.
I don't remember. I must have missed that. I didn't realize he mentioned the Breen in that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think we talked to those guys. We don't even really see them much until DS9 and Discovery flesh out their stories. Well, anyway, that's Paleo for you. So the moment that Picard notifies Geordi that his mom is missing, I thought was interesting, because LeVar Burton's acting choices have to exclude his eyes, right?
Right.
And we've heard him talk about this in interviews and at conventions, how it was a real challenge to not be able to act with his eyes. And because this was a Geordi-centric episode, I was kind of like looking at the choices LeVar Burton was making. And so his reaction when Picard informs him that his mom is missing, like I noticed he just kind of subtly uses his mouth, he gulps, and then there's like a slow inhale. It's a lot of just subtle work that LeVar Burton did. So I think it's a testament to LeVar Burton's acting that I never really felt like we were lacking any emotions from Geordi throughout the show. I always felt like he's as expressive as everybody else, but he just manages to pull this off by being a good actor and expressing himself in ways that aren't over the top because he's lacking the ability to use his eyes, but just the right amount. So shout out to LeVar Burton, one of our regular listeners, I'm sure.
You know, I haven't heard, or I don't recall hearing him talk about the eye acting being an obstacle for him.
Yeah.
And I also never recognized a moment where I never thought, oh, why is he doing that? Or that's strange. He was just like, the character was part of the crew. I never noticed any strange interactions or responses or reactions. And so it's interesting to hear this now. Like, that makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
We emote so much with our eyes, and he couldn't do that. So it really does speak to what an accomplished actor he is, that we never picked up on that. Or I never picked up on that.
I have seen guest actors on the show sometimes that do feel a little bit stiff. I mean, maybe those are deliberate choices, but sometimes I'm like, sometimes people do feel a little flat, but like Geordi has never felt flat to me. So
yeah,
well done, Mr. Burton. There's a point at which Geordi views a message his mom sent him 3 weeks ago, which he never responded to. So this is your reminder, listeners, and us, anybody that watched this episode, call your mom.
Call your mom.
Call your mom. Literally, that's the note. Pause this episode and call your mom, or better yet, text this episode to your mom and tell her to listen to it and then discuss it after. We here on the podcast promote family.
Absolutely.
Moving on. Another thing that stood out to me with this episode was the headgear that Geordi was wearing. It reminded me of the Star Wars character Lobot. Do you know who that is?
I do not.
There's got to be like a segment of our listeners that also like Star Wars that know who I'm talking about and are maybe screaming at me for mispronouncing his name. He's kind of a background character. He's Lando Calrissian's aide in The Empire Strikes Back. He has a similar kind of wrap around apparatus on his head.
Yeah.
You know the guy.
I do. I didn't know his name.
I didn't either. I had to Google it. I was like, guy in Star Wars with wraparound headgear, I think is what I wrote. And I found out his name there. I'm not even sure he speaks. I've seen that movie 400 times and I don't think he says anything, but I'm ashamed to say I'm not totally sure. But that's neither here nor there. This is not a Star Wars podcast, though we love all things nerdy. In this episode, I had forgotten that as the probe, Geordi didn't wear his visor. You know, when we see him kind of acting as the probe, I forgot that we actually get to see his eyes. So I'm sure that was a breath of fresh air for him to be able to fully use his acting faculties.
Sure.
Geordi's dad mentions the service for the Hera being on Vulcan because most of the crew were from there. So I don't know if you thought this, but like my first thought was, wait, is that the same ship as the DS9 episode, Take Me Out to the Holosuite? Do you remember the one where Captain Sisko like has his old nemesis on board? The ship that ship is the Tecumseh. So it's not the same ship, but that was an all Vulcan crew. I actually just rewatched that episode after I rewatched Interface here, and yeah, it's definitely not the same ship, but the Hera, which Geordi's mom commanded, was apparently mostly Vulcan. So I don't know what's up with these like mostly or all Vulcan ships. Maybe Starfleet just has a ton of Vulcan cadets. I don't know.
I mean, they're like right the Vulcan connection, First Contact. It makes sense that there's more Vulcans in Starfleet than maybe other species. The ship itself, I did note that Picard pronounced Hera several different ways throughout the episode. At first,
I didn't catch that.
The first time he said it, it was the Hera. Then it was the Hera. Then it was, so he seemed to oscillate through pronunciations before he landed on Hera, like everyone else was saying. But because the first time he said it was Hera, which I thought, his accent fine, but then he didn't keep it, and that stuck out to me.
Interesting. I have noticed that with character names in Star Trek. Like if you watch early Voyager, for example, people don't know how they're going to say Chakotay for a while. B'Elanna says it like in a different way than Janeway says it. And it's Yeah, it's a little patchy until they get, I don't know, through the first or second season. But I didn't notice that with the Hera here.
Yeah. You know, with Chakotay, I actually thought that made sense to me because his name might be pronounced differently in his culture, his language, versus how other folks might say it. And I thought maybe like Belana was saying it more closely to how he would say it in his native tongue versus someone else. So that change of pronunciation, I remember thinking that makes sense to me.
But why did she stop?
So like I can't explain that, but at the start it made sense to me. They were so close.
Okay, yeah.
That if that's how he pronounces his name, she'd say it. I think about when people speak with a Spanish accent. You know, I can say Latina, or I can say Latina, right? Like there's a different inflection. So,
yeah. And Belana was closer to Chakotay, obviously, in the beginning of the series than other people on Voyager were, so she would be a little more interested in choosing the way that she pronounces his name correctly. Yeah.
Thanks for the indulgence, listeners.
That's what they're here for. So I found, this is one of my issues, I found that Geordi's dad was a little cold and unsympathetic when he notified Geordi about the missing ship that his mother was on. Did you think the same thing?
There was such a strong, stark disconnect to me. Like your wife is presumed missing, presumed dead. You're talking to your child, and sort of like, yep, this is a thing. It's like I had an English muffin for breakfast. What? Yeah, what did you have? Yeah, it was that kind of tone.
Yeah, and I found that. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but I found that kind of a lot of people were not very gentle with Geordi throughout this episode. There's a scene where Geordi visits Data, claiming to just be passing by, and Data calls him out on it and directly asks if he needs to be comforted, and that it's more likely that Geordi's just passing by is just an excuse to discuss the difficult subject. And Geordi denies it initially. I mean, this is Data, though, so I kind of expect that from Data. It's Data, I think, being compassionate in the way that he thinks, the way that he can be, I guess. Just flat out asking Geordi, do you need to be comforted? Because he seems to care about his friend, but maybe it could be a little bit more gentle with the man whose mother just went missing.
I agree.
And then Data tells Geordi that essentially his hope is biased and the likelihood of the Hera being found is poor. Yeah.
And Geordi's like, thanks, Data. I feel so much better, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, while maybe that's a fact, could maybe don't lead with that, or I don't know. But again, Data. So I think he's trying to be helpful. It's just a little rough. And in that same scene, there was a 47. And as listeners might recall, a couple episodes ago or last episode, whenever, we talked about the recurring number 47 in TNG and in DS9, and it's gone all the way up through like Discovery. I won't recap it. Go back and listen to all of our old episodes, and you'll find the explanation. But the number 47 is deliberately inserted at random into various episodes of Star Trek, and there was one in here. When Geordi gets to Data's quarters, Data's staring at a blank screen, and he's apparently watching a poem that is currently on a 47-minute segment of emptiness, which sounds boring, but I'm not an android watching poems, so I couldn't tell you. But I did notice we got another 47 thrown in the show. Did you happen to notice that, Steven, or did you totally blank out the conversation we had about the rabbit hole of 47s?
I didn't recall the conversation when I watched the episode. I did think that it was interesting in that moment for Data to discuss at length the nuance of poetry and its meaning and its depth and its emotion, while at the same time being very callous with his friend about his potentially dead mother. That juxtaposition, I noticed that.
Yeah,
but I didn't make the 47 connection.
Okay, that's a good perspective. It's pretty jarring. Oh, Data, we love you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So Picard tells Geordi that the Hera's last reported position was 300 light years away. That's pretty far, and I just thought, wow, that's really far away. And Geordi had a kind of technobabble reason for why the Hera could actually be at this same gas giant. I don't remember what the details were, but when Picard mentioned how far away the Hera was reported to be, it was kind of like, all right, well, is Geordi losing it a little?
Well, and I thought that it was interesting. So his explanation of like a subspace tunnel, essentially between two points in subspace, blah blah blah, like far-fetched, right? Like Data says, it's possible, but nearly impossible, right? But then another point, they mention that the Hera passed this point, like this gas giant that they're currently at, 10 days ago. So I thought, okay, so if 10 days, 300 light years.
Oh yeah, can you travel that?
Right. So
that time,
that stuck out to me. Of, well, wait a minute. So, it doesn't say, do they stop somewhere? Has it taken them 10 days to get the 300 light years away? Is it that
did you do the math?
I didn't, but I thought that the numbers used were dubious. So I thought it lent more credence to Geordi's hypothesis. If they could travel 300 light years in 10 days, and they had been by that point, that, because he mentioned like, when they passed the giant, it must have like picked up something from the planet, and it, that's what made the point and the connection. And it was a stretch, my friend Geordi, but that 10 days thing stuck out to me, like, okay, like I don't think they traveled that far that fast. I know warp speed is exponentially faster, right, than light speed, but I don't know that 300 light years in 10 days is a thing they could do. But
I don't know. As I recall, isn't warp 1 light speed, and then warp 2 is some exponential multiplication of that, and then so on? It's
I don't actually know.
Okay.
There was a time when I actually really had committed to memory the science of Star Trek. I don't recall any of it now, frankly.
All right. Well, now we have displacement activated spore hub drive, so who knows what's going on out there anymore. Moving on, there's a point at which Picard tells Geordi to go see Counselor Troi, and he literally says, "She's waiting for you. So in the future, your boss can make therapy appointments for you." Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
I think that's actually common in military and police type situations. If someone's going through a traumatic situation and they're enlisted or in service, their superior can mandate that they go to counseling. So that's my family. There's a lot of military background in my family. So that's something that I actually that didn't stick out to me. Only because there's sort of this vague connection of Starfleet to military and sort of the service component, but that made sense to me, that he's going through the traumatic thing. He's acting differently than normal. They would want to give him support, or at the very least have him examined on some level.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Learn something new every day. So the last time Geordi said that he talked to his mom was 7 months ago, when she invited him to a party that she was having for her mostly Vulcan crew for taking command of the Hera. And Geordi says, "I suppose I could have made the time to go see her." And then Troi says, "Well, you didn't think this was the last chance you'd have to see her." But I did find Troi to be like a little harsh still about the likelihood that his mom was dead. She tells him the more involved and complicated and unending his story about her is, the longer he can believe she's alive. And then Geordi's just like, bye. It's like, peace out. He just walks out. That's not what he needed. I think what we're lacking here, and feel free to disagree, but I feel like we're lacking in this episode something just a little more concrete about the fate of the Hera, because as they state it, to me it just sounds like, well, the Hera's missing. I guess they're all dead.
I fully agree with you. It seems
Get
odd
over it,
that
Geordi.
It's okay. The ship's missing. We have a timeline for search. And if I recall, it's been like they've already been out there for 3 days or 4 days or 5 days, and they're gonna only be there for like it seemed like a short like parameter for search. It seemed like a preemptive decision to say, okay, like they're presumed dead, when there was no discussion, to your point, about what were they doing. Why might they have disappeared, right? It's just sort of like they were in this place and then they weren't in this place and we don't know what happened, so they're probably all dead. Like, think about the Pegasus, right?
Right. Yeah.
There was
interphased
the
into an
Enterprise
asteroid
was
and
called in to like help find them and figure out what's going on, and just like, oh no, the hair is gone.
Yeah,
sorry, Geordi.
Space is so weird and so big. It feels like they gave up early, and they're like, yeah, they're toast. Mm-hmm. Get over it, kid.
I agree. And with Troy's, I appreciate your comment about Troy's take on the, like, you space it out. I think that the writers perhaps were trying to show, oh, we researched psychological stuff, right? How things work, and rather than think about this is in the early 90s now. How prevalent is counseling in our society, right? It's still somewhat stigmatized. It's still this thing. So here's this, like, what she's saying, I believe is psychologically sound, but they can't leave it as Troy is going to counsel him, and that's the subtext. They want to show, hey, we know our psychology. So we're going to put it in the dialogue, which of course isn't going to work for a person. Like, that's not how you would counsel a person through a situation like this. So this is complete conjecture. I could be making this completely up, but it seems like they wanted to be like, hey, like we know our psychology stuff. But then they also, I think, wrote an appropriate reaction from Geordi, but it doesn't seem like it's in line with Counselor Troy and how she would typically support a crew member.
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, I don't know if Ronald D. Moore is going to STLV, but if I see him, I'll ask him. And then he'll be like, the Geordi Mom episode, we were so over that. Interesting behaviors from our crew in this episode. Getting back to our crew and behaviors, I learned in this episode that Riker's mom died when he was a baby. I didn't realize that. I don't remember if that was mentioned before. I just didn't know that. Again, back to Riker, I do appreciate that Riker apologizes for being unsympathetic to Geordi about his situation with his mom. So that's nice from one of his fellow crewmates that I would think would be a little more compassionate. Another note I had was Geordi disobeys Picard and chooses to use the probe because he says, if I leave without not knowing for sure, then I'll have to live with that the rest of my life. And I think this is the right call. Data chooses to help him and monitor the interface, but I think this is the right call. I don't think Geordi should have stood for everybody just dismissing the issue when it doesn't sound to us, the audience, and even to him, that enough investigation had been done at that point. So he just kind of goes rogue and is like, I'm gonna try investigating myself anyway. What do you think about that choice, Steven?
I totally agree. I think it was the absolute right choice. I think it was the only choice he could make, given who the character is, what we know about Geordi to that point. It makes perfect sense to me that he would do that. It also, this is right for the episode, for the plot. It also doesn't make sense to me that no one would think that he might just go ahead and do this anyway and not lock down the lab. Exactly. Or nobody
locks anything.
So that doesn't allow the plot to move forward, right? So I get that, but I think it's absolutely the right choice, and I appreciated how Data was like, I can't, send you to quarters without for something you haven't done yet. I'm like, good job, Data. There's the support.
I did feel like Data he came around in this part, because not only did he offer to monitor the interface, he also kind of gently asks Geordi to, if they're going to do this, to consider the possibility that what he sees when he goes on the other ship, it may not actually be his mom, and consider the fact that she may not be real. And Geordi kind of sees reason, and he agrees, and then he goes. So I feel like Data gently, in a more nuanced fashion, nudged Geordi toward a reality check.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And then so Geordi returns to the Roman, and he talks to his mom. And this is another acting choice that I noticed, that it was really interesting. When he gets there and he sees who he believes is his mom, he's kind of subtly holding a hand behind her back, which is not really, she's not doing anything actively, but just that kind of subtle hand behind her back, to me, reads as, all right, she's hiding something, or does she just stand like that? I don't know, but it did feel like, felt like Madge Sinclair was telegraphing, like, this character has something that is not visible on the surface. Or maybe Madge Sinclair just stands there, but that's just what it looked like to me.
Yeah, I think if that was indeed an acting choice, how clever.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Coming back to what I thought I remembered of this episode, my note says, oh, the being isn't his mother. It's a being that got trapped on the Ramon. That being and its friends accidentally killed the Ramon crew. The interface itself with the probe kept Geordi from being killed by the overwhelming psychic connection with these beings. Yeah, like I said at the beginning of our episode today, I thought, okay, so his mom turns into some non-corporeal being or something like that, some weird Star Trek-y thing, but it in fact wasn't that. V'ger. Yeah, shout out to the motion picture. I love that movie.
Me too.
And then moving on to Geordi's final conversation with Captain Picard, he says that when he was talking to this image of this person he thought was his mom, it felt so real that he felt that he had the chance to say goodbye. And this is kind of like, what? I don't know if Geordi fully kind of gives up at this point, or if maybe they had the thought to continue this arc into another episode in season 7. Did they know this was the last season at this point? I believe they did, didn't they?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if they intended to follow this up, but kind of left us hanging, though Geordi, I think, kind of got closure.
I think that the trivia earlier about the writer's room being kind of over it is relevant to this choice in the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Kind of calling it in, because I think that after all these moments of Geordi holding on to hope, and maybe it's, maybe she's still alive, maybe, to suddenly be like, okay, this thing that I now know for sure was not her, and that almost killed me, and used me to save itself. That gave me some closure with Mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Did
right.
it?
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, that does feel like some writing phoning it in. Because I wouldn't, if I could just flat out verify that this wasn't my mother I was talking to, that's not the same thing as making peace with the fact that my mother's not coming back. Like, get out of here with that. And this episode ends with, as I remembered, we never learn the fate of the Hera. That's my last note, and that's not my favorite note to end on. Though I don't mind an episode now and then like not having a very clear ending or leaving questions open for the future, but we never come back to it. I wonder if it's in any of the books.
Oh, interesting. I'm reading Probe right now, which is the sequel to Star Trek 4, the one with the whales.
Oh, I read that.
It explains what the probe is, right? So I'm reading that now and thinking, oh, there's connections and people in there that were in the original series TV show, right? That don't show up in the movies or anything like that. So maybe, I mean, I've not read a lot of TNG books, but that would be an interesting. It's like Luoxana's son, right? In our last episode, we talked about the fact that the last time we see her, she's pregnant, and that's it. We never learn like who the son is. Like Troy has a brother. Like what happens to Luoxana?
Yeah,
and like so what happens to the Hera? Like is it actually gone? Is there? Yeah.
There are so many books out there, and there are also so many comic books out there. Some creative out there must have addressed this at some point. But in terms of the actual like on-screen canon content of the show, like, well, I guess we just have to get over it. And that's all I've got about Interface. I enjoy this episode in that it gives Geordi a little bit something emotional to do, even if I don't necessarily think the crew are at their best with their friend who's working through this complicated situation.
I think that this is an episode that I didn't dislike, but I don't feel strongly about in a positive way. I think that I appreciated that it gave LeVar Burton as an actor the opportunity to do quite a few scenes without the visor and to be able to emote and act in that way. I think it explored an interesting technique, right, with connecting a person to a probe to do things that the probe couldn't necessarily do on its own.
Yeah,
I appreciated bringing in Geordi's parents. Like there are things I appreciate, but in general, this episode is sort of a for me.
Yeah, it definitely did not knock it out of the park. I say that because I just finished watching Take Me Out to the Holosuite DS9.
Nice.
Which, of the era. And speaking of the era, shall we do some collector's card roulette?
Yes, please.
Let's head over to that segment. Collector's card roulette. We ready for this, Steven?
We are.
So, listeners, this is that time in the show where we pull a random card that we've never seen out of a pack of collector's card from the era of TNG, and we just talk about either its connection to TNG or our memories or whatever we want to talk about when we pull the card out of the pack. These packs were opened for this show, and we have fun seeing what we got. Steven, have you got a pack handy? I've got mine here.
Do.
Steven's ready. Drum roll.
Oh, okay. So this card is called Alien Ambassador. It says Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. The artwork is sort of a animated cartoon sort of drawing of an ambassador. I do recognize this person from the movie in a periphery. So this is, and listeners, this is again from the Star Trek Edition Skybox Master Series. This is card number 76, Alien Ambassador Miro. So this is a signature card. It says, this alien was seen in the courtroom scene in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. We know little about this race, except that this alien seemed pleased at the outcome of the court-martial. There are a number of aliens in the Star Trek universe to whom we have not yet been introduced. However, there are always possibilities in Star Trek. We may come to know this being yet. And there's a note here. Miro is a native of Croatia, where he began his art career in the advertising business. Today, he is a renowned book illustrator, working for clients in computers, publishing, and tourism. So Miro is the artist who did this lovely card.
Very vibrant background. Okay, Miro, very nice. I do remember those characters too. And I do remember, are there two of them?
I think there are.
Yeah, so listeners, this is the end of Star Trek IV when they're talking to Kirk about all the bad stuff that he's done, and they disperse, and he talks to Jillian, and you see these characters in the background, right? And there are a lot of, I appreciate all of the practical creature work from this era. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so much more we can do now with like CGI prosthetics and extensions of prosthetics. This had some really interesting, there was like a wolf guy in the scene.
Yeah.
Do you remember the wolf guy? Really interesting designs. The one on this card, listeners in particular, are the ones that look like tall, I don't know, porcelain doll heads with like part of their heads shaved down the middle. It almost reminds me of Shrek. Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like Shrek with the big, what's the character's name? He's just got a big like paper mache head. Anyway,
yeah,
they're just big. They look like big porcelain dolls, and I love that somebody decided that we needed a piece of art of them, and that ended up being a collector's card. I mean, like, would that be the case these days? Back then, we had a lot less Star Trek, so I think artists got to highlight some of these lesser known or lesser discussed aliens, and it's a pretty cool card.
I think that I appreciate the really random connection to the discussion of this episode, right? We've mentioned Star Trek 4 a few times now.
Yeah.
And this is an alien specifically from Star Trek 4. So, happenstance. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's the magic of the whales.
George and Gracie for the win.
Yeah, shout out to George and Gracie. And as we're recording this, we have a new show, Starfleet Academy, that's been airing, right? And there have been whales. Like, we watched that the other day, and I'm like, Star Trek loves a whale. Anyway, this is not our whale podcast, but I think it all comes back to them.
Incoming transmission.
What's happening on BQN, you ask? We're not just a network. We're a universe of exploration, entertainment, and deep dives into the topics you love. Here's your star map to the sonic adventures awaiting you. Let's chart the Star Trek cosmos with all good things. Embark on a comprehensive journey through the entire Star Trek universe with the insightful crew of Amy, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristen. From classic to current, they cover it all. Galaxy class, engage. Steven and Stefan pilots this Alpha Quadrant mission, meticulously covering all aspects of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Infinite diversity. Stay current with the newest Star Trek frontiers alongside Chrissy and Thad. Union Federation. Whether your allegiance lies with Starfleet or the Planetary Union, Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley offer a unified front, discussing both current Star Trek and the truly Trek at heart, the Orville. Crack open that book with Peter and the Trek Book Club podcast. Delve into a rich tapestry of Star Trek's beta canon. What's the tea, Bev? Christo spills the latest Trek news and fandom insights with an essential LGBTQIA+ perspective, complete with engaging guest interviews. Our visual voyages that you can find on YouTube as well as podcasts are Trek Masters. Think you're a Starfleet Academy graduate? Test your knowledge with Davey and MC's challenging Star Trek quiz show. And the View Screen. Tune in live on Sundays for your dose of a Trek-inspired talk show. Kelvin and Amy host new 8-week seasons each spring and fall. But beyond the final frontier, we have Bargain Bin Gamer. Davey and Mitch, your self-proclaimed gamer guides, lead you to digital treasures, unearthing and reviewing the most affordable video game gems. Cinema Z. Grab your metaphorical popcorn for Mark and Matt's cinematic deep dives, unearthing overlooked films that demand your attention. History with the Szilagys. In order to never repeat it, tune in as Chrissy and Jason deliver bite-sized snippets of historical events from around the globe and transformational journeys. Host Lex Rosa explores what it means to embrace authenticity in the face of societal expectations. You can unlock deeper levels of engagement with our exclusive patron perks. The Hive Mind is where you can join our random script readings, live reaction shows, and roundtable discussions. You can also now watch All Good Things as an extended video edit and get a background look into the creation of a podcast. Also, check out our back catalog of It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Stay connected to our ever-expanding galaxy of content by following BQN Podcast on Instagram, Bluesky, YouTube, and Discord. We appreciate you choosing BQN to fill your auditory needs. Thank you for listening. Assimilate the audio.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join us on our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, BQN Podcasts on Bluesky, or our Discord server to continue our discussion there. Links can be found in the show notes.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Here on BQN Podcasts, you will never hear commercials on any of our shows. If you'd like to help us keep our shows coming to you each week ad-free, consider becoming a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join our Let's Fly reaction show, script readings, and other perks. Visit patreon.com/BQN for all the details.
If becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leaving us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show.
At this time, we would like to thank our very own associate producer, Jim McMahon, and a special thanks to Mark White for our show artwork. We are so grateful for your support. And to all of our listeners, we send out a heartfelt thank you.
Thank you for beaming aboard the Galaxy class. And until next time, make now always the most precious time.
And if we're going to be damned, let's be damned for what we really are.
Engage.
Hailing frequencies closed.